School.
In April '44, you show up for gunnery school outside of Nellis, and you're there for how long again? For
April, May, June, July. It must have been 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
3 months, and then we were sitting around waiting for another month. So
okay,
there for about 4 months.
okay. And at that time, you had not been assigned to any bomber crew yet.
No,
Okay. And then when you got to after about that month of kind of sitting around, then you were assigned with a bunch of guys to go to Sioux Falls, North Dakota?
yes, we were given some time at home, like 2 weeks
Oh, okay.
vacation, and that was about it, before going overseas.
Okay.
So I got on a train and went back to home in Ames, Iowa,
Okay.
and at the end of that time I reported to Lincoln, Nebraska, where there was an air base there,
Okay.
and there we were put into a crew. I didn't know the crew members, but we were assigned to a crew, so that when we got to Sioux City, we were part of a crew there already.
All right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So that was the crew that you were ultimately going to be with
Yes.
the 388.
So we met each other. There was
Okay.
the pilot, and the officers were there some time before we were, apparently, as
Okay.
enlisted people. So I didn't know how long, but they had been there, so that was a place that they were familiar with.
Okay.
We did some training as a crew. We had practice missions of one kind or another. My crew, as a matter of fact, flew down to San Antonio and stopped for refueling, and then came back.
Do you remember what base you flew into?
What date?
What
No.
base?
Oh,
Which one? There's a bunch of them. Randolph. You had Brooks and Kelly.
there were 2 bases down there, and we landed in the wrong one. That I know.
Okay.
And so my pilot had a little trouble explaining to that, but it kind of went over my head, so
Okay.
I didn't really know what was going on, but I found out later that we were in the wrong base, and he had to tell him he wanted fuel to get back to Sioux City anyhow. So,
Okay. They
so
wanted
that's
them
what
out.
it was. That was what his problem was,
Okay.
really.
And by the way, do you remember your crew name? If you could we kind of go down your crew name,
Sure.
the names and their positions, starting with your pilot, co-pilot, yada yada yada.
Well,
Okay,
the
pilot.
pilot was Donald Dennis. He was from some town just close to Los Angeles, but maybe south of there, and I don't remember the name of the town.
Okay.
It wasn't Long Beach, it was something pretty close to Long
Okay.
Beach.
Was he the one that eventually became squadron commander?
No,
No, different
No.
Dennis. Okay.
he died.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll get to that sometime
Okay, we'll talk
later
about.
on. But
All right. So Donald Dennis was your pilot, co-pilot.
co-pilot is Ash. His name was Bob Ash.
Okay.
He goes by the name of Gordon now. He's still living, and he lives in northern Georgia.
Okay.
I think that he stayed in the service and got to be a colonel of some kind
Okay.
before he retired.
Cool.
The
So your bombardier.
bombardier, I don't really remember his name. And he was taken off of our crew and put into V091 training, I think.
Okay.
So that we were a crew that didn't have a bombardier. So we had an armorer
Okay.
who was an enlisted man, and he did the bombing. So
Was that? I used to learn a phrase last night. A toggler. Does that sound familiar? Toggler.
well, we call him a toggler.
I'm sorry, toggler. That's
Yeah.
right, toggler.
That's what he was.
Okay. And my understanding, the toggler, his job, he wasn't like you say, he was an enlisted man, because usually bombardier is an officer. He
Yes.
was an enlisted man. He was kind of like briefly trained, and his job was to follow the lead pilot
Yeah.
And when they start dropping the bombs, he would toggle the switch to start dropping his bomb.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what it was.
All right. So it was kind of a.
But he saw all the bombs and see that they were properly wired and everything.
Okay.
You know, so.
All right. So that was his. And then and what was his name again? Do you remember his name? The toggler?
Yes. No, it's not coming to me. Bennett.
Bennett?
Bennett was his last name. And he was from someplace in New Jersey. The radio operator was Harlan Engfer, Engfer,
Okay.
and he was from California someplace. He'd been around quite a bit. He was a bartender that kind of went from one place to another, I guess.
Okay.
The waist gunner was from Ohio. There's a town north of Columbus. Don't remember the name of it.
Okay. Well, you remember his name?
Well, I'm not thinking about it right now, and maybe I ought to think.
All right, you're working on, where was this hometown? I knew it was. That's okay. It's okay.
Balter was his name was Curley. That was his last name, and he was a kind of a youngster, the youngest guy on the crew.
Okay.
And I suspect that maybe he got into the military service a little bit on the young side.
Okay.
And it might
Few
have
of them
been.
did that.
It might have been because somebody told him to do that. So
Okay.
that's the feeling that I got.
Oh, like some court authority kind of a deal.
That kind. Yes.
Well, by the way, how old were you when you enlisted?
Oh, I was.
Fresh out of high school or older?
Well, I would have been 18. So,
18.
you know.
Okay.
And when all this was going on, so in 1944, I would have been 19.
19,
so,
already
you know.
19 by then. Okay.
So I was born in April 17th, 1925.
Okay. All right. So the ball turret was Curly.
Yeah, the tail gunner was from around Indianapolis, Indiana, and he was a bricklaying contractor. He had his own business,
Okay.
and his business that he was trying to work into was relining and rebuilding iron furnaces, where they made iron and steel, out of iron ore.
Yeah.
And the bricks had to be in a certain way, in a certain kind of brick. And he knew how to do that, and not many bricklayers could do that. So anyhow, that was his job.
Do you know did he actually volunteer or was he drafted? Do you know? Did you ever talk about that?
No.
Because from what I'm saying, it's kind of is there were certain occupations that were exempt from being drafted, but they were also exempt from even volunteering if they knew that you were, because they just had some, and that sounds like one of those semi-critical fields that we need you to stay back in the States to do. But so sometimes they kind of figure that out, and so they wouldn't admit that that's what they were doing. So that's why I was asking, if it was he actually drafted in and they didn't tell them that's what he did or whatever. But anyway, okay. So he used to tell. And what was his name again? I'm sorry. The tail gunner.
I wasn't going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, but I just don't remember all those guys' names
that's
without
okay.
writing them down.
All right.
My memory doesn't work quite that way anymore.
Mine's the same too.
When I'm doing this interview, I'm 92 years old, and I don't get stuff out of my head quite that fast.
Okay. No, that's right. And then there was the other waist gunner.
We just had one.
Oh, you just had the one waist gunner. So
we had a 9-man crew. So
all right. So the radio operator, he doubled up as the other waist gunner.
He would have if
Right.
he needed, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that, yeah, originally you started out with 10 and they kind of they
Well, it
deleted one of the waist gunners and they said, well, the radio guy can do that. Because at one time he had his own gun.
yeah,
And it was
well,
kind of up out that little bubble window. Do you remember ever seeing a gun up there?
yeah.
Okay, did he use that gun? Or do you know?
Well, I think it was there for him to use, yeah.
Okay. Because you were the engineer, so you were the top turret, right?
Yes.
Top turret guy. Okay. Okay, all right. So that's your crew. So you're down in San Antonio. Your pilot hands in the wrong place.
Yeah, well, we go back, it flies us back to Sioux City.
Get back to City.
I should tell you, one of the first times that we went out on a practice mission there in Sioux City, whenever you take a B-17 off just before you get onto the runway, you have to check your engines and make sure they're going okay.
Yes, sir.
The engines on the B-17 had two magnetos. They had two spark plugs that went to each cylinder. And the spark plug, both those spark plugs were on separate magnetos. So one of the things that you checked was you put up the engine up to full power and you turned off one of the magnetos and the RPM drops down. And you do it with the other magneto and it drops down. So we were ready to take off and we checked the magneto and it didn't drop down.
Okay.
So I knew what was wrong, that the magneto wasn't firing one of those spark plugs.
Okay.
So I told the pilot that was a problem and it ought to be fixed. I didn't know how serious it was, but I knew that it was not right.
Okay.
And we had the crew chief come out and look at it, and it didn't drop for him. Or if it did, it was only slightly.
Okay.
He says, that's okay. And I told the pilot, I don't know how serious this is, but I said, it's not okay. Because it was doing it, it was faulty when we looked at it, but not
Okay.
when the crew chief looked at it. Anyhow, the pilot took the airplane back and parked it. We missed out on one of those training missions. And I think that he caught the devil for that, and I heard that from some of the other engineers in our group, that the pilot kind of told him that you might want to watch your P's and Q's and all of this stuff,
Okay.
you know, because something as bad is going to happen to that pilot, my pilot.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know that anything ever did, and the reason might be that we lost an airplane about 3 days later that might have been our airplane. I don't know that, but whoever it was came in for a landing from a training mission, and I think he decided that he took up too much runway coming in and he should go over and try again.
Okay.
I think that he had one engine was feathered for some reason, so and he couldn't pick up the power. He hit the firehouse and the parachute drying place, and ended up hitting one of the barracks for the enlisted man barracks.
Whoa.
And just wrecked everything, killed about half his crew. I knew the engineer on that crew, and he got out okay, but he ran around the Sioux City Air Base for 2 or 3 days before the medics caught him, or the firemen caught him and cooled him down. But
Okay. So
because
he was
that
in a
was-
bad state of shock, huh?
well, it was just shock, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you that because not everybody gets through. The training is for the people that graduate.
Yes, sir.
You know, if you don't graduate, they might bury you. So
Yes, sir.
you learn or else. is
So
what
you
I
think
say.
that was the original plane that you had